Hello and welcome to the Management Matters podcast by the University of Liverpool Management School. I'm Hazel Kennedy, and for this episode I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Jen Davies, lecturer in project management at the Management School, and Serge Patrick-Heselton, managing director and co-founder of the Clixels Group, which is a digital branding business based in Liverpool's Knowledge Quarter. Together they'll be discussing AI and how organisations can embrace it in their day-to-day operations.
Hi, I'm Jen Davies, really excited to be on the podcast. I'm a lecturer in project management at the Management School, Director of Studies for the Project Management Masters, and I've also just taken on a new role as project co-lead for a new, exciting funding opportunity called Music Futures. Really nice to meet you, Serge, properly in person, and can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Likewise, nice to meet you, Jen. Yeah, I'm Serge. I am the managing director of Clixels Group, and we are based in Liverpool. We are a digital branding agency, and we've been doing that for about the last 5 years or so. Really excited to be talking about AI with you today. I know I'm looking forward to learning a lot, and also probably just going through a few of the crazy kind of themes that are around AI at the moment.
Yeah. Likewise. I thought a great place to start would be talking about your time actually at the Management School. So you're alumni from the MBA program, and you were studying AI around a time when people weren't talking about it in the way they certainly are now. So I wondered if maybe we could start by talking about that and how much things have changed, particularly over the past few years, to give some context.
Yeah. So again, probably about, you have to say 9 years ago. Wow. I coming to do my final dissertation, thinking about what are the major themes around business right now. And at the time I was reading about AI, and that time it was pretty much science fiction. So I thought, well, let's see how AI is going to impact business environments. And then ended up going down quite a rabbit hole, which took me back to 1956. And as we know, my lecturer saying, research is only valid, within 5 years. I said, well, let's just go back to the start. And as I remember, AI could just about draw a cat when I was doing that. And now we are here. Which
is a phenomenal amount of change in a relatively short period of time. And even over the past few years, it's been a bit crazy, hasn't it? So How much do you think it has changed, and what have been the big leaps forward in your opinion from when you were first looking at this, nearly a decade ago?
I think the big leap forward is that it's now mainstream. It's just everyone is talking about AI. Everyone has some kind of understanding, whether it's fear or excitement around it, but everyone is talking about it. And how we're going to control it. Is it ethical? There's so many questions that just the normal person will ask, and that wasn't happening 9 years ago.
I think as well that we had an amazing guest speaker, Jeremy Bassender from IBM, come and visit the Management School last year, and he described ChatGPT as being, one of the most successful consumer products of all time, one of the fastest growing consumer products of all time. And I think that's been the massive change, isn't it? It's gone from something which was maybe limited to computer engineering to something that everyone can interact with, and that's been, I think, a big change.
Yeah, it's massive, especially when, I know with my kids, they're saying at school, teachers are worried about people using something called ChatGPT. What's that? So it's not, as I said, it's trying to control it for something that's become so consumer focused now. But people are thinking, is it just ChatGPT? Well, what else is there? So I think going from nothing to all these types of products, it has been quite incredible.
From a business perspective, do you think it's quite overwhelming for SMEs at the moment? Because, we have, I suppose, entered an era where there's such a vast array of different AI tools out there. What do you think about that in terms of where businesses are at currently with their thinking on it?
That's a great question, actually, because I think a lot of businesses are scared if they don't, and they're scared if they do. And by that, I mean, if you start talking about an AI strategy in your business, your teams and your people start looking around and thinking, well, are you thinking about replacing me? Am I not doing my job? Rather than thinking, well, this could be a chance to augment our workforce and make them better. I think that we're still of the mindset that AI is some replacement tool. So I think that's what we kind of need to understand, and maybe allay some of those fears that probably some teams and staff are having in business. What do you think, though?
Well, just on that note, I think one of the things I keep saying to my project management students is AI won't replace you, but a project manager who is adept at using AI probably will. And so I think it's about becoming confident with these tools. But even, for students, it's very difficult to know where to start. So I first became interested in AI, actually more through my background in the creative industries. So I'm still very active in the local music scene. I had a period of time working in the industry in fashion as well. So my background's always been creative. And so I was aware of it more initially from the natural language processing point of view, but from image creation. So you mentioned, going from a cat, all of a sudden, you could create pretty good fashion images from just a very simple prompt, and became quite interested in prompt engineering. And then I had set my students an activity related to digital marketing where they had to create a campaign image for a fragrance using DALL-E, which was OpenAI's image generation platform, which has now been obviously embedded into ChatGPT. But I said, you have to create the marketing copy. And we'd looked at this particular marketing theory and such and such. And in between me setting the seminar activity and the seminar taking place, ChatGPT 3.5 was launched. And I usually make it my business to keep my students right at the cutting edge of where technology is at. And this was the first time where I thought, I don't know whether I should tell them about this or not, because I had inputted their assignment question, and it had given me a fairly good answer in a few seconds flat. And I thought, no, do you know what? I think transparency is the best way forward here. So I literally just showed them what it could do, and they all sort of sat aghast, and I was like, happy Christmas. But I did go on to tell them they would have all failed if they'd done that, because it was lying about source material all the time. But I think that was the first moment where I thought, wow, this is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
And I think being so open with them from the beginning was the right call to make, because a lot of the press that was coming out at the time was very much like a staff versus student narrative. So, some schools were just banning it outright. Some people were declaring it at the end of an essay and things like that. But actually, I found when I spoke to the students, they had a lot of the same concerns as the members of staff did about what this meant for society. So that's the mindset I've kind of taken moving forward. And I think just having those open and honest conversations is the right way. How we use this critically, and I suppose that then transfers to businesses. How do businesses use this in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, lots of businesses right now that we speak to think it's just a tool. Oh, should we just use it for copy? Should we use it for all our marketing? But then I suppose the question is, what are the real challenges that you're having? And do you actually need an AI strategy? Or are you doing it because you've got AI envy because your competitor is using it, but they say they're using it, but you don't really know how they're using it. So what we like to do is open those conversations up to say, well, with your teams, are they, you're going to scare them by saying you're bringing this in. How do you bring them along for the journey? So ask them what they're most struggling with. How can we make you more productive? How do we augment you and supercharge you by giving you a tool? Some of them are probably using ChatGPT at home and not telling their bosses and saying, look at this great piece of work I've done. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as you say, you should be more open. This is a tool. It's not, I think let's dehumanize it here for a moment. It's a tool. So how are we going to use this to make us better? It's a strange one.
And also, I suppose, to free up the time to, I guess, focus on more value-adding activities. I think from a management school perspective, it's been interesting speaking to some of my colleagues, and for the first time this semester, we've used the GPT builder function of ChatGPT. So for those who are listening who might not know what that is, essentially it's kind of like an app store but for AI. Is that a good way of describing it, do you think?
Yeah, well, it's almost like Lego for AI, where you say, I want to build myself a little house, but this house can do certain things. It will have a garage to park my car in. So you can literally corner off a part of OpenAI and ChatGPT and make it your own thing. So just by giving it a prompt, it will, I want to make, here's a good example, a lottery number predictor. You could build that in a GPT. Whether you'll win the lottery or not is another thing, but you could do that.
Exactly. So I think it's about, taking that large language model or large foundational model and inputting your own data to then fine tune the model to make it more specific and tailored to your particular use. So myself and one of my colleagues, Etienne, we both used it this semester to create essentially assignment support, where we fine-tuned the model with the assignment brief, and I built it with my students so that they could then use it. So it meant that they had 24-hour support round the clock. So they didn't have to wait for me to respond to specific emails. Now, what that did do is meant that my office hours time was freed up to talk about subject-specific questions rather than the mundane, repetitive questions that we'd usually get asked all the time. So I was able to use my expertise more in my office hours rather than just asking more administrative questions. And I think there's a lesson that can be learnt there for businesses in general, is that how can you use it to free up that time so that your members of staff can be spending it on value-adding activities rather than just monotonous administrative tasks?
Yeah, I suppose it would be like you could take a staff policy, for example, and chat with it, as opposed to, you feed it into a GPT and actually have a conversation with that policy, as opposed to saying, read through the policy and let's apply it to this particular problem we're having. But it's actually better when your documents actually come to life. You could use a GPT in that way. And how have you found do you think your students are now better at understanding material because they have a tool like that, in comparison to go back and use maybe guided reading to get through a subject? Do you find that you're seeing better results doing it that way?
I think so. One of the things, obviously, I'm very what I advocate for is them using it in a critical way. I think when used correctly, AI can help enhance critical thinking, but it has to be used correctly. Obviously, if you're just dependent on it and you're not questioning what the AI is returning to you, then that's a problem. But no, I've been really pleased with how our students have adapted to it. And I think they know what the pitfalls are and they use it wisely. What about from a business perspective? Because as you mentioned before, do you think that the majority of people are just using it in its sort of most simplest form? And what do you think the path forward is to, I guess, a more applied use of what it can do?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think what we see is people will try and use something like ChatGPT and say, oh, it was rubbish. I asked it to do this and it just came back with a load of nonsense. I said, well, what prompt framework did we use? What's a prompt framework? So again, as you know, garbage in, garbage out, that is a problem. So people will try it once and think, oh, this is rubbish. It didn't work for me. But if you have a real sort of project to go out, so your manager might say, look, let's work our forecast out for this quarter. We're going to enter a new territory. How are we going to approach that task? Well, obviously we need to research the market. How can we ChatGPT help us to do that? Okay, let's put in some clear milestones and goals. Now, normally you'd probably just do the mundane thing, but it probably gets a lot more exciting when you've got a tool working hand in hand with you. But I just wanted to go back to the point you made about, you said about critical thinking. If you think before mobile phones came out, I used to write a lot of numbers down. I could still remember some numbers in my head. So as now mobile phones are everywhere, most people probably wouldn't remember a long mobile phone number in their head. So are we going to get to a point with AI that's going to happen? A certain part of our brain is going to shut off now and we're not going to have that memory because we're relying on AI. So I think that there has to be balance. But I also think it's just put AI on to find a challenge that you have and then apply it to that challenge. And then you'll see its magic.
Definitely. And I think you raised a very important point earlier about, starting with the problem. And I think that businesses, it's not just a case of bringing in AI because that's what everyone's doing right now. It's like, what is the problem that you're ideally trying to solve? And can you bring AI in a way which helps alleviate that problem? Just going back to your point about prompt engineering, basically, how are you approaching skills and training when it comes to AI in your company?
Well, we're a very nimble firm. There's 4 of us. So it's everybody's responsibility to know about AI. And we challenge each other to say, what are you reading about right now? So right now, I'm learning about MCPs, which are model context protocols. And it's the agentic way of using AI. So we're moving from just prompt-based to now giving an agent a prompt. It then goes and finds its own agents to work with and splits the task up into lots of smaller chunks. Because I think what everybody's doing with ChatGPT right now is just giving it a problem and expecting that to be solved in the one prompt. But whereas now we can actually set agents off to go and do various tasks. So one will go and look at the numbers, one will look at customer service, one will look at marketing, and then they'll all discuss at the end of it. So yeah, so learning is big for us. But it's amazing. It's still the old school way of doing it. YouTube, books are out of date. So it's blogs, it's Medium, and that's where we do most of our learning.
Just to go back to that point about agentic AI, for people who maybe have not come across this as a concept before, could you maybe just expand on that and explain what it is as you see it?
Right. So if you working in any business, you will have a manager. Then you may have an assistant manager, and then you'll have the rest of the team. I would say that's exactly how to think of the agentic way of doing things. You'll have a main agent that will say, right, these are all your tasks that you're going to do. Delegate those tasks out. All the other agents will go and do their jobs, come back, report in. Is it right? And it will be signed off at the end. And then you have your end product. I think that's a kind of, that's the way it works in my head. I think that's the easiest way to explain it.
So autonomous AI agents.
Yeah.
Certainly from the conversations I've been having, that's the way it's heading.
Yeah.
How far off do you think we are from, your average business in Liverpool, for example, being able to employ that effectively?
I think it depends on the type of business. I think if you're logistics, I wouldn't quite let them just run off and drive down the road. But I think certainly in marketing, you can probably automate a lot of your functions, especially around deep research, as we see now with I think Manus AI is a new tool where you're seeing a lot of research. DeepSeek is another one. Perplexity is another really good tool for doing that. But how far, I would say, again, is it going to take another 3 years for us to really understand that, these tools need to be in business? Or it's a difficult one. I know that I'm in it every day, so I'm going to be biased and say, yeah, I'd like it to happen tomorrow. But then I think a big part of our business is introducing AI into business anyway. I think we're probably about 2 years away from at least, I say 20 or 30% of the business in Liverpool using it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we could step it back a little bit and perhaps talk about some of examples that we've encountered of businesses within Liverpool employing AI effectively. Maybe I could start because I think I came across an interesting one with my hairdresser. And so I just think it might be good for people to who don't know anything about AI, how they can get started. And she was spending a lot of time crafting out social media copy. And I was having my hair done and she was, asking about what I do and what I teach about and things like that. And I was telling her, and I showed her, I said, well, you could essentially take all of the social media posts that you've ever done and upload it into the GPT and give it an instruction to say, I want you to help me create posts that are similar in tone to this. I would like you to help me expand my reach. I would like you to X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. And it sort of blew her mind. And I think, the amount of time that could save her over the course of a year, she's a micro business. And so, I literally just created a GPT for her whilst I was sat there having my hair done.
That's incredible.
And so she can now use that. And, it's a very easy, intuitive tool to use. And I think she was quite surprised at how user-friendly the interface was. And I said, you don't need to know anything about computer engineering or coding. You can just, it will talk you through the whole process. And obviously that's only going to get better and better. I know we've spoken previously, prior to this, and you gave an incredible example of a local butcher. I wonder if you could expand on that, because I thought that was a really good example.
Yeah, so I think that's incredible with the hairdresser, by the way. And I think most people think that it's just small to medium-sized businesses that are going to be able to harness this. But you see, hairdresser, that's incredible. And with the butcher, it's about, they were looking at weather patterns to see, is it going to rain this weekend? Or is it going to be sunny? So looking at that, using ChatGPT and some other sort of agentic tools, they were able to say, right, it's going to be sunny this weekend. I need to get my order of sausages and maybe coal in for the weekend. So I've actually got stock ready. So starting to predict and forecast what your customers might do, and AI helping you with your stock and your inventory. And that's a very, very simple way of doing it. The big guys like, you massive supermarkets are already employing these kind of techniques. So why not let it filter down? Before, to do that would have cost thousands of pounds. Now it's just a ChatGPT subscription, check the weather, give it the patterns, and away we go.
Yeah, which, like you said, would have been out of reach. So the barriers have massively come down. And I mean, you can do some incredible things, can't you, with weather APIs, so application programming interfaces, where you can then, that all just happens automatically.
That's right.
Which is, would have been unthinkable for most small businesses even 5 years ago. So.
And the fact that they're actually being able to have this a bigger way to think, then they're no longer constrained by thinking, oh, this is way out of my reach, this is going to cost too much. The tools are here and they're only getting cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. There's two of my students, actually, they've just launched a brand called Hustle, which is they've launched a creatine health bar, and they have been using Zapier and integrating the ChatGPT API into that to help automate a lot of their processes. And I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, again, when you think of when you're starting out a business, you're often short of capital.
Yeah.
And so then to have something which you can just outsource to AI and automation software is a wonderful time to be an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah, and when you're doing this, if you get stuck and you don't know how to do something, you literally just ask the AI and it helps you along.
Just guide you through setting up the AI.
It's great. It's brilliant. Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see but I think if we were to just bring it out to the Northwest, where that's going to be in the next 5 years. I mean, as you know, every week there is a new development. Nearly every day there is a new tool, a new model. It's going to be exciting. For us anyway, where it's going to be in 5 years, I know there is a lot of fear around AI. I think we just need to get over that hurdle and say, right, how can we use this in our everyday lives? And remember, AI isn't human. There is this, seems to be, everyone wants to humanize it and make it, let's put a human skin on it. And no, it's a tool. And, we can get to robots later on, but let's just, take baby steps to it,
One step at a time, you think?
Yeah.
I think it will be fascinating to see. And we're just launching this Music Futures project, and one of the big discussions is the sort of more ethical side of AI, the training data that's used, what that means for copyright holders. I think there's a lot of things which need to be sorted out, and we seem to be ploughing ahead without maybe necessarily getting some of those fundamentals sorted out.
AI in music is a big one for me. Being a musician, I would...
And you're very involved with Africa Oye.
That's
Festival.
right, yeah. But, to see AI just doing the whole thing for you, I think we need humans. I mean, music has a soul, right? And it's a way to express ourselves. A computer can imitate all it likes, but I think there comes a point where a human will always be needed, because no matter how great these models get, you'll never be able to give it a soul. That's that, and there's just something that humans have this way of just, again, out creating the next thing. So I don't think it's going to replace us, because I think with AI, there's no point in having it if there aren't humans involved. So why are we doing this? It's there to serve us. And
so do you think that is the same in business as in the sort of more creative arts, that you think that humans will always need to be at the center?
Yeah, I think let's say that if we're doing, manual stuff where we've got to, lift heavy objects, okay, that's great. We can give someone an exoskeleton but keep the human involved. But just your point about music and copyright, again, if an AI makes something, then who's it making it for? Is it?
Just to wrap up, the opportunities for local businesses, I think, are phenomenal.
Massive.
And let's see what happens over the next couple of years. What would be your key tip to a local SME that's listening in terms of how to get started?
If your teams are asking you about AI, ask them, why do we need it? What is it? Let's have a demo. Show me what it can do. Start using it, because your competition are. Just learn, master AI before it masters you. I think that would be my tip.
feels like a good note to finish on. It's really nice chatting with you, Serge.
You too.
That was the Management Matters podcast by the University of Liverpool Management School. Thanks again to our guests, Dr. Jen Davies and Serge Patrick-Heselton. You can find out more information about Jen's and all our other research by visiting the Management School's website and connecting on social media. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover on the podcast, please let us know. Thanks for listening.